Hertz is a really interesting case study, though. Now, like you and I were both part of some offseason project to basically rank the best quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era, right? And it's like how do you quantify these things, right? There's stats, there's all these things, then there's the feels. Joe Montana was a great feels quarterback, right? And but I don't want to dismiss that as like a punchline or a thing that doesn't really matter. Like I think there's something to that. This idea of like he only ever won in the Super Bowl, right? 4-0 in Super Bowls is Joe Montana's sort of calling card as a statistic. But the real thing to me is when you go back and you kind of study Joe Montana's career, number one, it was kind of punctuated by insane comebacks all the way along, right? From like high school, college, all the way through the NFL. Like he's and each sort of era, each part of his NFL career, there's a comeback. There's a story somewhere there, like a ridiculous, implausible, absurd comeback that only Joe Montana could make. He's got one of those like every step of the way. And I don't think that that's just a series of flukes, right? I don't think he just got lucky 8 times randomly throughout his career and that sort of sustained it. There is something to this idea that everybody there believed Joe Montana was going to create the comeback. And you listen to like Ronnie Lott and players like that. They could be 25 points down with Montana being responsible for half the points, right? With interceptions. And every single person in the huddle believed Montana was the guy that was going to create the comeback. I think that's a real thing, and that's impossible to quantify. So what makes Jalen Hurts interesting is, yes, they've created this incredibly good roster around him, and obviously that helps, right? Like any quarterback in the NFL is better with a better roster around them. But I also think that it's interesting that Jalen Hurts seems to be incredibly mentally resilient, right? This is somebody that was benched in the national title game in college for cause, right? Like they were right to bench him. They sat him down and they were immediately better with Tua at the quarterback. It was the correct decision. But it was also a decision that could easily have like immediately broken the quarterback that you benched. That could have been the end of his career. Instead, he goes somewhere else, lights it up, looks great, gets himself on an NFL roster where there was already an incumbent quarterback, beat that guy out eventually. And as you said, has now beaten Mahomes in a Super Bowl twice, has outplayed Mahomes in a Super Bowl twice, has won one of those, has won a game in the Super Bowl, and has played basically the 2 best games of his career in the most important situations. I think there's something to Jalen Hurts being one of those guys where, when the chips are down, he is going to play his best. And obviously that's not a universal constant, right? You're never going to play your best it's not directly
right.
It's not a direct correlation. Like the most important game, you're going to play your best the next. But I do think that's part of Jalen Hurts' makeup. And there's no matter all the stats out there, all the situational data, all the, the advanced numbers, I don't think you're ever going to get that close to being able to accurately quantify that. And that is what Jalen Hurts is bringing to the table on top of being good, good, not great, but then he's got this thing.
Hurts might be the closest thing to the phrase that we don't love. The guy just wins. I mean, you don't like that as a general phrase, but if you were describing Jalen Hurts, he's probably the closest thing to that, because you'd be hard pressed to find stats that put him in the top 5, right? Unless you're unless you're adding up touchdowns, and they do have the tush push domination, but you would say across Alabama, Oklahoma, and now in Philadelphia, he's found a way to win. I think there's another element to what he brings to the run game, which is because it's not like a sexy looking run game, right? There's not a whole lot of flash plays like a Lamar or a Josh Allen even, but it's efficient, and that puts the defense in a bind. And when Saquon Barkley shows up to Philadelphia, not only will he be playing behind his best offensive line, but now with a really good run threat at quarterback, which helps open up everything as well. So all those little things definitely add up, in addition to what you're saying, whether it's leadership, intangibles, or whatever, just finding a way to show up at the right times. yeah, there's a lot to Hurts' game that you like, but obviously if you go back throw for throw for him versus some of the other quarterbacks in the league, Sam, there's a healthy debate between Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. And I know Eagles fans hates that, right? I mean, what do you mean? What do you mean? Jalen Hurts does it in the playoffs. Like, what do you mean? But I mean, there's a pretty healthy debate if you go back throw for throw versus both of those guys. But you could definitely argue that the big difference for Hurts versus Dak is the Cowboys and Dak tend to fold in bigger, like, again, not every time, but they tend to fold in the biggest games, and Hurts doesn't. So who cares what happens throw for throw? Like, I want the guy that's going to show up when it counts.
Oh, I think you could easily argue that on a play-by-play, throw-for-throw basis, Dak Prescott has been a better NFL quarterback than Jalen Hurts at this point. But if you asked most people, I think certainly now, with recency bias being what it is, if you ask most people now, who would you want tomorrow for a game, random team, random roster, you don't know anything about him, everyone's taking Jalen Hurts over Dak Prescott right now. And I'm aware of like the danger of opening that door to sort of lending credence to this idea of why he's just a winner and it's just clutch and it's all that kind of stuff, right? Because I think most of the time that analysis is, number one, it's lazy, and number two, it's inaccurate, right? But I do think that there's something to that with specific players sometimes. Not all the time, and not most of the time it's thrown around there. But I do think that there might be something to the idea that Jalen Hurts, I don't want to say is just a winner or, but that he has a difficult to quantify mental resilience that powers him to greater results than he should be getting based off what he does on a play-by-play basis.
That's why, remember, we gotta listen clearly here, right? You and the listeners, right? Closest thing to he's just a winner, but you described it with certainly more depth here, right? Well, we're not in shouty show world here. Jalen Hurts is the best winner in the NFL. I would take Jalen Hurts over Josh Allen tomorrow because he just wins. Like that's a fake statement. I didn't actually.
Right.
I don't believe that.
It's like everything else, right? Like none of this is. It's not always 100. Like none of it is 100% of the answer to anything, right? With the thing that makes football so interesting and so intriguing and provides people like us with endless amount of content is it's always a bit of something and a bunch of other things. We keep saying there's always confounding variables, right? So even if there is power to this idea of clutch and mental toughness and the X factor or whatever you want to call this, just being a winner, it's not 100%, right? Like the guy's never going to win everything. You can't put him on the worst roster in the NFL right now and say, well, immediately just putting Jalen Hurts on this roster means they're a playoff team because all he does is win. Like it's only part of it, but it might mean that if you put him on the same roster as a guy like Dak Prescott, he would get better results because he's got that part of it. Like, and the difficulty is always like with Brock Purdy, how do you quantify that and how much is that worth, relative, and weighing, the mental part of it and what he's able to do, that X factor, the unquantifiables versus what is actually quantifiable and what he's doing on the field on a down-to-down basis. Like that's where this gets tricky. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.